Hello and good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening from wherever you are tuning in from. My name is Kavita Rao, and it is my honor to be your host for today. We have such a wonderful, diverse group of panelists today that are going to be touching on topics and subjects that are so relevant in today's world. And I know there are things that I think about and have questions to, and I know I'm not alone in these. So I'm really, really excited to hear what they have to say, get started, take your questions. I would say during this entire process, I really invite you to engage as much as you would like. Please throw in those questions whenever you have them, whether it's, you heard someone talk earlier in the day and then a question gets triggered down line, please do send it and we will try to get that answered for you and get those questions back to you. So we really want this to be personal and for you and really getting the knowledge and information that you've come here to seek. I mean, I can't believe this is our third Heat Forum already. It's so exciting. If this is your first time, welcome. If you've been here before, welcome back. We're so happy to have you back. I would think one of the things that's so wonderful about what Heat has put together to put this on is just that further level of education that we don't see often in the dance convention world. So really what you hear today is a small taste of what has been integrated into the Heat motto, into all our faculty. So even when you come to a live convention, these further education is a part of what we do in person as well. So you're just getting a little taste of our motto and our mission statement, I will say. So, our Heat Forum stands for the ideology that we strive to live and pass on to others, especially the next generation, to hear, educate, advocate, and train. We at Heat believe that we hear with an ear to listening, we can educate ourselves and advocate for change in order to train others. So that is our mission statement, and I hope that strikes a chord within you because I know it does with me. So, without further ado, I would love to get started by introducing our first speaker. Miss Ariane Howie is also known as Momsy on social media, and she's going to be talking about navigating the waters of social media. I know this is such a huge elephant in the room for so many of us. How do we handle it with the kids that we teach or our own children? How do we make it a safe and encouraging place? And how as educators and teachers and parents are we a part of this process. So I know she's put in a ton of sleepless nights with her kids to make this possible, and it's taken a lot of hard work. But her two kids, Mackenzie and Reef, have been extremely successful on TikTok, and I think much of that has to do with her being the backbone of her kids and helping them achieve this success. So I'm so excited to welcome you and pass on the mic to you and hear about all these crazy things social media has going on these days.
Well, thank you so much, Kavita. And thank you to the Heat Convention for inviting me to be part of your panel. Um, I have, such a passion and commitment to helping others. I just feel that it was just a natural connection for Matt and Colby to, really connect. We connected on so many different levels because I love that you stand behind hear, educate, advocate, and train. I think it's such an incredible mantra, and I get goosebumps just thinking about it. And anybody that knows me and that those that will learn to know me is that when I get goosebumps, it's all good because it's all about the goosebumps. Um, so but basically, I'm going to say again, my name is Ariane Howie. Um, a lot of you know me on social media platforms as Momsy. And Momsy kind of came up because I feel very, very blessed that so many parents have trusted me and committed their children to being in my presence. And, when your kids are in my presence, they're all my kids because I need to be there to take care of all of them, just not my two. So I don't know who kind of came up with it. I don't know if it was my daughter, my son, myself, or the three of us together, because I've always liked the letter Z. And Momsy just came about a number of years ago. So, as Kavita mentioned, I'm a mother of two wonderful and talented kids who are currently piercing through the social media industry. They started as professional dancers and actors. And basically, what we all know in the industry is triple threat. And, you know, it's what I can say to you is that anyone that knows me knows it goes with a lot of sleepless nights. You know, to my moms and dads out there, I'm sure that as I'm sitting here before you all, you've had many sleepless nights for a multitude of reasons. But for me, my relationship came about because I was asking a lot of questions and I really wasn't getting a lot of answers. So, having a marketing strategy background, I just felt like, you know what, I'm not finding out how to do this. So I'm going to have to figure this out myself. So, what I think really came from it is it developed a relationship and a consistent being with my children to, you know, to develop my relationship with them. It's made our relationship stronger. They'll tell you often that I'm the backbone of their success, but honestly, you know, when you have talented children like we all have, that's right there, knowing and understanding, you know, what makes them tick, what their niche is. And for me, I just had to figure out how to guide my children to understand better the ins and outs of the industry as the young entertainers that they were. I'm going to tell you, getting here was not an easy task. And like I said before, I was asking for a lot of advice and a lot of direction, but wasn't having this willingness for people to help. And I didn't want to hold my kids back. So, this whole platform of social media really allowed me to grow my relationship with them and succeed together. And I'm going to coin the phrase, the operative word is together, and you know, and being a team, because together everyone achieves more. I mean, it's so true. You know, I believe that right through to my soul. You know, so if, you know, your children are in this industry and you're not navigating through the social media waters, they're like the best kept secret. If they are navigating through the social media waters, they need you. Even if they don't think they do, they do. It's really important. And I'm going to share that with you because, you know, I feel that this journey that I've had with my children has been one that has kept us humbled, and that also has provided us success. And, you know, I enjoy helping other parents, other kids. So I'm going to just put that out there that hopefully, you know, you all will, you know, find me as someone that you can ask questions to and feel confident and comfortable that even if I don't know the answer, I'll find it. I'll figure it out. We'll figure it out together. And that's really what I think has grown my relationship with both Mackenzie and Reef, is that we've always figured it out together. You know, I'm going to tell you, I have a great husband too, so I'm very excited that he has allowed us the opportunity to, you know, travel and do what we do and do it together. And I think that's really important. So, couple things I want to kind of step back is things that I think come up is one, whether or not to allow your child to be on social media. What are the pros? What are the cons? What hazards and pitfalls come up, making sure you're aware of them and making sure your child is aware of them. And then what benefits come from social media and how communication and monitoring the communication is really, really important. And, you know, one of the things that I will tell you is that we all know word of mouth is the best way to always grow, always. So I want you all to consider that idea, because social media is basically, you know, the ability to magnify word of mouth. Okay. So, you know, what one person says or writes to another individual, you can impress and express to hundreds, thousands, and millions. And that's an incredible place to be. And honestly, in the pandemic we're all living in together, I think it's something that we all should consider. You know, if you're a parent of a dancer or a parent of an actor or a parent of a singer, you know, if you can kind of take it from the point, if nobody knows about your kid, nobody knows about them. I mean, we have so many things that are going on around us, and this is a great way to A, grow your relationship with your kids, B, understand and feel confident and comfortable in what's going on in social media, and then also see what they're interested in. You know, it's sometimes we find that we're disconnected from our kids, and this is a great way to reconnect. Whether your child is 7 or 17, you know, it's a wonderful place for you all to reconnect and understand, you know, what your child's niche is. It could be focusing on being a ballet dancer and you want to help them be the best ballet dancer ever, or hip hop, or ballroom, or Bollywood, whatever it is. There's so many attributes to social media that you can help and contribute to your kids knowing and understanding how to work and navigate through that, but also for you to be comfortable in figuring that out. So what I'm saying to you, when I'm kind of coming to, is you have to figure out what your kids' goals are. What are their goals? And then you got to figure out what your goals are. And then you got to figure out what your goals are together so that you can venture into this together. And absolutely, I will tell you, you can't help but encourage and improve the relationship you have. Um, there's so much that I love to want to share. I'm very passionate about this subject matter because there are pitfalls out there in social media. One pitfall is that they're on social media too much. And I know there are parents out there going, uh-huh, mm-hmm. How can we help that? There is a way to help that. There is a way to put some control factors in place so that your kids are not in front of, you know, their phones 24/7. Even in this world that we live in today, there are ways to navigate around that. But the other thing, the other pitfalls is, you know, who's looking at your kids? And, you know, I'm going to tell you all, if you are the parent of a child or a teenager that says, this is my social media, not yours, uh-uh, it's not like that. You're the parent, you're the parental. You have to, you know, kind of put yourself in the driver's seat and explain to them that there are people out there that don't have the best intentions of our children. And, you know, our children are always thinking the better of someone else. Um, at least many of them are. So it's your responsibility to protect them from those pitfalls. Also, it's also a way, if they're experiencing any kind of bullying, that you can be, you know, in that and understanding that, so that your child doesn't find themselves, you know, kind of disconnecting or falling into a situation where they need someone to talk to. And I'm going to leave a lot of that up to Terry to talk about. But it's really important that you're involved, because there are things that you need to be aware of. So when you look at social media, I'm going to tell you one of the things that I really enjoy and I really love about, you know, and let me put this out there. I do not work for TikTok, but the thing that I enjoy about TikTok is that it is set up to have your child have a great experience. So the first thing I'm going to tell you is that if your child doesn't have TikTok, you want to set them up on a TikTok account. It's a place that you can feel very confident that when you disclose their age, that they're protected. Um, there's a lot of things that I can go into depth about that and why TikTok is a great platform. But I can just share with you, if you would look up COPA guidelines, that will actually be able to engage in why TikTok as well as YouTube are great platforms for letting your kids, you know, kind of fly and engage and build their confidence and enjoy themselves. You know, whether they're confident in dancing on a TikTok or doing comedy on a TikTok or just anything that they're having enjoyment, just be aware that whether it's TikTok, and I'm just gonna do a sideline to Instagram or Triller or YouTube or Facebook, which is a lot of us, adults, you know, parents, I'm going to let you know that that starts a footprint for life. And what's really important to share and convey to your children is that this is something that is going to follow them forever. It is an impression that you have to know and understand that what you write, what you show, and what you say on social media is immediately distributed. So, on the positive side, it expands your interaction with the dancing community. It expands your interaction with the acting community. It expands your interaction with many communities that you want your child to interact with. But the reason why I'm asking you to get back involved if you're not, or re engage, is because sometimes our kids don't realize some of the things that they're doing last for life. And there's ways that you want to make sure that they avoid these everlasting experiences that become very negative to them as they get older and enter in adulthood, or even an opportunity for a scholarship, whether it be to, you know, a professional dance company or to a college. So they can look at things that you've done or your children have done, and it follows you forever. So even if you take it off Instagram or you take it down from TikTok, it's already out there. So you want to make sure that what they're putting is their best foot forward, is what I'm saying to you. And that they're always, you know, getting into the habit of thinking before they're doing. Because if they get out there and, you know, I don't want to pick on any particular song, but, you know, you want to stay away from the words that you know your children shouldn't be engaging in. And there's always a clean version out there. I know it because I've been able to be successful with both Mackenzie and Reef and making sure that that happens. So it's really, really important that you, sorry if I keep looking, but when my phone goes off, I didn't know if it's ticking to see if there's any questions. And believe you me, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to stop me, because this is more of something that I do you know, in person or on a smaller scale, or where I can see you all. And I know that I come up with questions, and sometimes you're really anxious to ask your question, and it might be the perfect time to ask it, because it might allow me the opportunity to engage in another subject matter of what we're talking about, which is social media. Um, the first thing, again, I'm going to go back to is don't be afraid of social media. Don't be afraid of the opportunity of sharing your kids or sharing yourself. It's a great way to start a conversation. It's an excellent way to grow, again, your relationship with your kids. For me, honestly, I remember sitting back 5 years ago at a convention with some very, you know, strong, amazing choreographers. And I asked a question and I said, should I have my children on Instagram? And they looked at me and they pointed me out. I mean, it was a little embarrassing, I'm not going to lie to you, but they pointed me out and they said, I'm so glad you're the one that asked the question, because we were actually going to come and talk to you. Because I had an Instagram that was my Instagram. It was mom, you know, it was Momsy. Actually, I think it was my name at the time. And it said parent of Mackenzie and Reef, and their names were even different back then. And they said, do you not want to share your children with other people? Or, and I looked at them and I said, I don't think that's my goal, but at the same time, could you explain that a little better to me? And they said, well, you know, you have some amazing, talented kids, but no one knows about them. And social media is a great way to share it. It's like a walking resume or talking resume, actually. And if you want your kids to have other people know about them, and what I mean by others, I'm talking about in the industry that we all are working in, then you got to put them out there. So 5 years ago, I basically put a fork in the road and gave Mackenzie her own Instagram and Reef his own Instagram. And that's where, like, right there. And then I took that and said, okay, now what? um, so then I was like, okay, so at the time they were really focused on being professional dancers and really just putting their stuff out there. I still was learning myself. So again, they were still a secret to many. It wasn't until about 3 years ago that Mackenzie was invited to be a part of a bigger platform, which was Playlist Live. It was like nothing I've ever seen before. Imagine 12,000 of your children all looking at their phones, engaged in the same place. It was scary and incredible and mind blowing all at the same time. It was crazy. And, you know, I learned a lot in that 72 hours. I got to be honest with you, just by paying attention, which is my thing. Like, if you ask my children, that's the single one thing that I think a lot of us forget to do is just pay attention. We all have a habit of just going through the motions of a day in and day out kind of stuff, when the secret to success is right there in front of us just by paying attention. And that weekend, I paid attention. And, you know, my daughter was the one who was actually with me. So Mackenzie Brooke was hired to play with Alabama Barker, to dance behind Alabama Barker with Sydney Bourne. We're so blessed that we were invited to that experience. I got to tell you, parents, Travis Barker, Blink 182, what a nice guy. And let me tell you, watching him engage in his children's career, like, really just opened up my eyes and really enlightened me. And, you know, I have so much, um I'm trying to think of the right word. I just really look back to that weekend, and I got to tell you, as busy as Travis Barker is and was, and being part of Blink 182 and being one of the best drummers in the world, his involvement with Landon Barker and Alabama Barker's careers was amazing to this parent. To see how busy he was, but yet not busy enough, like not too busy to re-engage and understand and know what's going on about his two kids, was for me life changing. It's not that I wasn't involved in my kids' careers. It's that I really needed to take a bigger role of, you know, I hate to use the word control, but, you know, an engagement, um, you know, being, you know, a monitor, or, you know, I'm going to come up with the right word. I will. Just, you know, Matt will tell you, I will come up with the right word for this, because control is not the right word. But engaging in our children's lives is very important. And that is the right idea of where we're going. So he gave me like such an insight to what he's been doing and how successful he was doing it. 72 hours, I stood right on my 2 feet the entire social media extravaganza of Playlist Live. And while my daughter was dancing on the stage with Jojo Siwa and Johan Rivera and the Coffee Family, and then Mackenzie performed with Alabama Barker on the Musically stage, and then the YouTube stage. and then with T Wayne on the You Now stage. I should have lost 20 pounds that weekend, as much running as I did. I didn't, but I should have. But it was such an incredible experience. I only wish that my son would have been there, but he was working back on another job. And, that's when you have like a great partner can help you to facilitate being in two places at once. Because, parents, it's not that easy to be in two places at once. And sometimes we have to be in three. So from that, I, really just tried to re-engage Mackenzie into social media, and she really was just dabbling in it. So here's the first thing I'm going to share with you. You can't fit a square peg in a round hole. If your kids are not wanting to do social media, the only thing I could tell you is to keep re-engaging it. You can't force the issue. So even if you're excited about it, if they're not, then take a step back. I will tell you that it took a year, and Mackenzie tells the story better than anyone. So I'm not going to take that away from her. I hope that one day I will get to see you all, and that you all will get to have Mackenzie tell the story. But I can tell you, fast forward a year from there, Reef was on one platform. He was working on Lip Sync Battle Shorties, and Mackenzie engaged her experience just when Musically became TikTok. And they kind of both started at the same time, and they took off. I mean, it was incredible. So I got to tell you, from a parent perspective, I really had to get an understanding fast of what was going on here, because Mackenzie was building and growing like gangbusters. And that could happen for your kids. And I will tell you, I can help you make that happen. If that's the direction you want to go in, if you see that your children want to be in that world, I'm happy to help you get there. It's just a matter of finding out what makes your kids tick and how to help them tick, right? That's what we're doing as parents, is just helping our kids to be better humans, you know, be better contributors to society, be better to themselves. So I'm gonna stop for a moment because I see Kavita. Hi, and see if we have some questions from the audience.
Yes, no, thank you so much, Ariane. That was so wonderful. And I know, coming from someone, like, social media somewhat scares me. So just hearing you talk about it in this way, it's almost like a sigh of relief that it's not always so scary. Because sometimes with my students, it's always that struggle of, oh, they're practicing TikTok dances and I want them to focus on other things, and being able to have that conversation with them. And I think the key word that really stuck out to me is the together part, and how you've really been able to do this together with your kids. And it's not a battle, it's figuring it out together, working together on it. And I think that's so wonderful. And sometimes we forget that we can have that relationship with our kids, whether it's our students or our actual children, and be on that level with them, and share in that success and that journey. So it was really insightful. And we definitely have some questions that I want to um, pose to you. And I will tell all my attendees that are here, there's so much information to digest sometimes, that it's
Absolutely.
yeah, that they'll the questions sometimes come later once they start implementing the things that you've talked about. So, at any point, like I said before, please do send in those questions. So one of the questions that we got is, how much do you oversee and supervise your kids' social media?
Sorry, I had a little tiny frog in my throat. Honestly, I oversee all of it, to be honest with you. Like, every single social media channel that Mackenzie and Reef have, I have on my phone. Okay. So basically, at any given time, and they know this, at any given time, I could look at their TikTok, I could look at their Instagram, I could look at their Triller, I could look at their Snapchat. So I think that's really important, that parents take that role and not be afraid to put themselves in that position, because, and it's not like you're taking away their voice. You're not. You're just making sure that no one is taking advantage of your kids. and that also they're being socially responsible. And that's the coin phrase, is being socially responsible in what they're doing.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think one of the things you said earlier is that those things last forever. So making sure what they're putting out is something that their future selves or your future self would not want out there, because it's true. It's once it's out there and can't do anything about it. So
And as we all know, we have seen a lot of things, happen in the last year, even with like huge social media influencers that have had, because here's the thing, and I coined this phrase and I say this: haterade is Powerade. But at the same time, as your children are growing and becoming more successful, there's always that person that wants to kick them down or kick them in the head. So you have to be aware of that. And that's why being socially responsible as a parent, as well as your child being socially responsible. So if God forbid they should possibly do something that, like I say to my kids, would you want your grandmother to see this? Would you want your grandfather to see this? Would you
yeah,
want your future children, like in your future self, to see this? You have to think about those things because it is forever.
yeah, that's a great point. And I think that kind of leads me, or transitions into one of the next questions is, until what age do you take that role with your kids? What age do you feel like, okay, they're old enough to be on their own?
Well, at this point, I mean, honestly, they really engage their DMs, once they get past me. So there's, and that's kind of like another segment of like understanding, Instagram and TikTok and those kinds of like behind the scenes of, people that are direct messaging your kids or attempting to. Um, but once that person has kind of passed through me, now the kids have the ability to exchange DMs. I'm still seeing them. I'm letting you know that I'm still overseeing it. So I don't think that we should ever get away from seeing that. My kids have a little bit more control over their Snapchat because of that being more of an engagement of them talking back and forth with their peers. But let's not forget that we as parents and you all as dance educators, and the professions that you all are in, that if you're a bad guy or gal, how to get to kids.
Mhm.
So we have to make sure that our children are being, you know, at socially responsible on the other side, not trusting that everyone has the best intentions. So for me, I still oversee everything.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to tell you until, maybe, 18, maybe 21. I don't know. Like, I feel like you just have to do that extra set of eyes. I think you have to, because I'm in the position that that I'm not just my kid's mom. I also manage and oversee all of their activities. And, we didn't even engage in like, they work on the platforms of social media. So, and they have a lot of fun doing it and they make a living. And here's the key element. They make a living. I don't make a living. They do. So they're building their future, their opportunities, whether it be college or a car or their first house. The opportunities can be so endless.
That's amazing, truly. Getting them started early. And then one last question for you: tips on growing your social media page or getting chosen to be a brand ambassador.
Wow, that's um so, the first thing I would say is, if we're concentrated like on, here's what's really great about Instagram and TikTok is that they feed each other. So, if there is a place where you want brands to know who you are, then I would say a great way to start is dress in the brand, right? Like put the clothing on that you want to represent. If your numbers are, let's say, very much on the low end, then, you know, right now you're a secret. They don't know who you are. So the best way to engage people to know who you are is wear their shoes. You know, let's say if you want Adidas to know who you are, yes, Adidas is a multi-billion-dollar operation, but sometimes you got to start small. And instead of like looking at things this way, kind of like look at it as, you know, as we become dancers, right? You got to you got to crawl before you walk, and you got to walk before you jog, and then you jog before you run, and then let's face it, somewhere in there dancing is coming. So as you're developing you as that, it you have to take off small little bites. And you know, I'm happy that I'm, you know, on multiple levels, that I would be happy to help, you know, parents to understand how to navigate through that. um I will share with you that TikTok is an excellent place to start. It's a lot easier to grow. And here's a fun fact: if your kids don't have a TikTok, start a TikTok account with them, because then it's a family account. Then you all are achieving something, instead of it just being about, you know, maybe you have 5 kids or you have 1 kid. Who knows? I mean, I don't know. So the way that I would suggest is, if your kids are under, you know, 13, if you're 13 and under, maybe start it as a family account, something that you all do together as a whole family, you know. And yes, we're in this social pandemic, as we all understand, but maybe you have a neighbor left to right, or a couple of kids that they all hang with, that is part of your world, and engage that, make it fun. And that's going to put you out there, and it's going to give you an opportunity to grow. And I will tell you that Mackenzie and Reef started their career growth on TikTok for branding opportunities. And it started with Mackenzie started as low as $100 to do a TikTok for 15 seconds. They never take 15 seconds, by the way. Uh, and Reef actually was able to kind of ride her coattails, and he started out at a higher range. He started at 200. I'm going to tell you, those numbers are not even close to what they're averaging now. It's exciting as a parent to see that they already have careers and already have money in the bank. And I'm happy to share, you know, how easy that can happen.
Well, Ariane, thank you so much for all your wonderful insight. And just what is the best way for people to get in touch with you? Is it through Instagram, messaging? How should people reach you if they have further questions?
I would probably say for now, I am working on a, so I do have a channel I'm working on, but it's it's under wraps right now. But I'm still making sure that, you know, that I cover everything for parents and educators and stuff like that. And I have an education as a background. So I would say DM me on Momzee, Momzeee. DM me, hit me up, and start there. And you know, a lot of times I'm going to tell you that I'll probably say, let's jump on a 5-minute call or a 10-minute call. I'm that kind of gal. I want to help you help your kids, and or even if there's any choreographers on this or educators, I want to help everyone. I really want to make this where we all win.
Well, thank you. We appreciate you so much here at Heat, and I loved having your kids in class as well the last time I taught there. So we really appreciate your energy, your advice, and just your willingness to share a topic that is very difficult to talk about sometimes. So until next time, we'll see you soon.
Bye, Kavita. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
And thank you to everyone.
Yes. Amazing. So that was really fantastic. Thank you guys for throwing in your questions. I know that was a lot of material to digest. And I think the speaker that we have next is going to dive a little deeper into the psychology of all of this. I'm very excited to introduce Terry Hyde. He's coming all the way from England to talk to us, so it's actually his evening. But he's had such a wonderful career as a performer, which I think is such an attribute to how he's able to talk to dancers and educators, because he himself was a professional ballet dancer. He started at age 6, and at 10 he was awarded a 5-year scholarship to the Royal Academy of Dance in London. And then he joined the Royal Ballet and later moved to London's Festival Ballet, which is now the English National Ballet, which they are amazing. And then he continued to he moved to musical theater, performing in London's West End and film and television. So truly, as a performer, he has an incredible career. But on top of that, he has so many training qualifications and experiences as a psychotherapist. So I know he will get into all of that. But Terry, we are so lucky to have you on. Thank you for joining us all the way across the pond. And I know you're going to be talking to us about how to become a mentally fit and emotionally strong dancer. So welcome.
Thank you, Kavita. Thank you, Heat, for inviting me to this forum to give me a bit of time to talk about. Now, this is only a short section of what I normally talk about in my workshops, virtual workshops that I do. I've also recorded for schools this hour and a bit long talk. If anyone wants to contact me, and I'll give you details of how to contact me at the end. So the snippet is to do with getting dancers to become mentally fit and emotionally strong. The only way to do that is know what creates your emotions. Now, I'll just basically deal with anxiety today in this talk. And anxiety comes from the fight, flight, and freeze mode that we are all used to. There are actual events that happen, actual traumatic events that create the fight and flight, whereby any of the senses of the body sense something, goes to the brain sends a signal to the adrenal gland, and the adrenal gland then pumps adrenaline into the body, the heart races, and adrenal goes into the muscles, and we either fight or we run. The freeze is we are so petrified that we go into a very small ball, and animals do this when they're being chased. They'll play dead, or they'll just crawl up in a little ball so that the animal that's chasing them think, oh, I don't want to bother with that anymore, and they go off and find somebody else. So that's fight, flight, and freeze. Now, I just need to add now, I'm going to be generalizing because we all come from different upbringings, different cultures, both parents, single parent, no parents. All of these different situations create who we are and the way we deal with things. We may listen to other people talking about a situation that we actually pick up on, and that holds a trigger within us for something in the future, perhaps. So if I say then, give you an example of a little girl, let's call her Jane. Jane's about 6 years old, just about to go on stage for her first performance, and she feels these butterflies. She has sweaty palms. She has a dry mouth. She has her heart racing. And she says to an adult, oh, this is what's happening to me. And the adult says, oh, you must be anxious or nervous. So that has actually programmed that child with those physical feelings to say, I'm anxious. And so she grows through life with that knowledge that that's anxiety, when in fact, excitement, the physical feelings from excitement are the same as, or nearly the same as, anxiety. And it's only the frame of mind that you have that creates the anxiety. The two words usually are what if? What if my shoe comes off? What if I forget the choreography? What if I slip over? What if, or what if? It's all in the future. Now, some of these future things may have happened in the past, and that's what creates the trigger. Or the child has seen somebody else fall over, or somebody else's shoe come off, or somebody else's costume come down. And so they think, oh, this might happen to me. Well, in fact, it probably won't happen to them. And there is a probability that you think, I might forget what I'm doing. I might forget my lines. I might forget the choreography. And if you continue thinking that way, you will forget it because your mind is not actually on what you're meant to be doing. Your mind is on thinking about the future. And the future is up to the way you think. Now, when you consider competitions, auditions, exams or assessments, performances, they're all situations in the future. Now, most of you will have had rehearsals, practice over and over again for months before any competition or a performance. And the music is within you then. It's part of your body. The steps are part of your body as well. The combination between those. The thing is, you've cut the link off with the mind. There is an intrinsic link between the mind and the body. And the mind and the body must continue to be that way. And so from the mind part of you, I'm really excited about this. I know I can do well. I know the steps. I know the music. And that's all you need to think. I know it sounds simple, but that's all that you need to think before you go on for a competition or an audition or a performance. When you do that, that then creates a positive link. When you start thinking about, oh, this might happen. What if this happens? What if that happens? Then the link is a negative link. And then anxiety comes. I'd like to add, there are some people that feel so confident in themselves that there is no anxiety. And it's wonderful to feel like that. I was lucky enough to be able to feel like that. I had such focus. I went on stage, I did the rehearsals. The feelings that I had were excitement. As I mentioned earlier, they're identical to anxiety. But I thought I was excited about going on stage. And so I'm using this experience to pass on to others, knowing from a psychological point of view that this is the case. So when you look at your feelings about anxiety and excitement, you need to look back at what happened in the past. What did somebody say to you? What happened to you in the past with regards to a performance, for instance? Did a shoe come off? Well, a shoe comes off. Doesn't matter. And this is the sort of thing, and you're going to say to me, yes, but it does matter. The performance was wrecked. Or was it wrecked? Someone may have noticed a shoe come off, but as you get on, as you practice, you'll realize the professional thing to do is kick the shoe away and carry on. It doesn't matter. People will think more of you for that. If you slip over, professionals slip over on stage. You have a look at Biscuit Ballerina, at all the things, Fall Over Friday, I think it is. Shelby is wonderful with her Biscuit Ballerina. It happens all the time. And so don't worry about it. Just pick yourself up and carry on. It just adds to who you are. The less you are anxious, the more things that will happen. Anxiety is to do with the future, but usually it's triggered by the past. So now let's look at something else that we can do to change things. It's the way we look at situations. Is this situation I can change, or is it a situation that I can't change? Can I control it? If you can't control anything, just like the pandemic that's on at the moment, we can't control that. Some people are doing that, let them do that. We just have to set that aside and just look at our own world. What can we do to control our own world? What can we change? sometimes we need to realize that we have to leave some things behind. And this is amazing. This pandemic has really changed people. I mean, you look at situations, restaurants, etc., closing down, and in the UK, they're allowed to do takeaways. Pubs are allowed to do takeaways if they're doing food. So rather than losing business, they've actually generated another business. The delivery situation with drivers, delivery companies, that's expanded as well. So retail has slowed down and other situations have changed. So it's being able to open your mind, have a flexible mindset rather than a fixed mindset. When you have a flexible mindset, you can look for opportunities in negative situations. So there are no real negative situations because there are always opportunities. To remember that, always opportunities. A fixed mindset, let's think, okay, there's an example here. Two people are waiting at the bus stop and it's pouring with rain and the bus comes along and drives past because it's full. One person says, oh, this always happens to me. So they're the negative mindset. The fixed mindset always happens to me, when actually it probably doesn't always happen. It just occasionally does, but it always happens to me. I may as well go home and go back to bed. Off goes the other person, phones work, says, I'm going to be a little late. It's raining and the bus just went past. Does anyone want any donuts and coffee when I come in? So it's a totally different way of looking at situations. Flexible mindset, fixed mindset. The more flexible you are, the more you will see opportunities in situations. Now I can see I'm coming up, and I know Kavita hasn't come on screen, but Kavita, if you're there, are there any questions at the moment in case I go on to another subject? And Kavita has obviously gone off for a coffee because she hasn't come back to me. Oh, here she comes.
Hi.
Hi.
So yes, we already have some questions. So
Okay.
thank you so much. I don't know if my screen is a little bit, but how would you deal with severe anxiety on stage? I'm a young performer and I have awful anxiety and I get awful panic attacks before I perform.
Okay, so I obviously don't know your background, so I can only generalize here. And by the way, if anyone wants to contact me, they can do it in counsellingfordancers@gmail.com. And counselling has got 2 L's. We spell it with 2 L's in the UK. So counsellingfordancers@gmail.com. So anyone can do that. Also, they could message me through Instagram on, again, Counselling for Dancers, 2 L's, and that's at Counselling for Dancers, that's the name. So back to the question, panic attacks on stage, you really need to find out what has triggered them in the past. And until you find that, you're just going to carry on. There are ways that you can change your mind set to perform, but the triggers are still going to be there. So really, you need to figure out what the triggers are, what's happened in the past that has created the anxiety. It may not be anything to do with dance or performing, it may be something else, but that is something to look at. So I'm going to give you now deep breathing exercises. Everything is in the counts of 4. And if you start feeling that feeling coming up, you then start that. And also for anyone else, learn it as well, because you may need it. And you also could help other people in the count of 4. So you're going to breathe in through your nose, deep breath, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it for 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then breathe out slowly for 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now that is 1 cycle. Then you have 4 shallow breaths. So you do your 4 shallow breaths, and then you go back to the breathing in through your nose. 1, 2, 3, 4, hold your breath, 2, 3, 4, breathing out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 4 shallow breaths. You should only need to do that cycle 4 times. Everything is in 4s, and I've done it that way because we're dancers. And I didn't say 5, 6, 7, 8. I did the 1, 2, 3, 4. I can see you smiling and maybe a few little bits of laughter, but that was a joke. Thank you. All right, Kavita, are you coming back? I hope that helped the person that just put that answer in.
Yes, feel free to, if you have a follow-up question to that, feel free to come back and answer. I think what is really interesting is when you were talking about, you have created this whole hour-long talk about dancers being mentally and physically fit. How do you feel like the mental aspect plays into the physicality in terms of becoming a stronger dancer? Like, what are ways that you can mentally train yourself in order for your body to respond in certain ways? Like when you're getting through a time that you really feel like you can't get your leg higher, or do more turns, things like that. What is the mental process that you can go through to help the physical process?
Okay. Mentally fit and emotionally strong, the link, the intrinsic link I was talking to you about, the mind and the body, which you've just brought up. So it's to be able to listen to your body and listen to your mind. Our body and our mind are telling us all the time what it needs, but we ignore it. We're dancers, we push through pain. We just push ourselves too far mentally as well, because we don't want to show any sign of weakness to anyone else outside. We could be suffering badly inside, body and mind, and to be able to push through the stress, physical stress and the emotional stress, is a sign of strength. But is it? Because pushing it to burnout is not a sign of strength at all. It's the sign you're saying, I'm going to give up everything now. I'm going to give up. And a lot of dancers have fallen by the wayside because of that, rather than listening to their bodies. A good practice is mindfulness meditation. So a daily meditation, and even if you just sit quietly, you can just close your eyes and go to wherever there's a discomfort in the body or pain or anything like that, and just focus on that area. And in the thoughts in your head, you don't have to use your mouth. What do I need to do? That's all you need to say. And you just wait for the first thought that comes into your head. Don't think of what you want to say. Just wait for the thoughts to come in. So the link between our mind and our body is such that you can ask these questions of yourself. And as I say, we ask these questions of ourselves all the time. But what do? We ignore them.
All right, so I have one more question for you, or I guess it's actually a two-parter. How to deal with the stress of coming back to large events? I know so many of us have been obviously on lockdown and quarantined and not been performing the way that we used to, or dancers not competing the same way that they used to. So how do you deal with that stress of the times and what's been happening? And how can one gain confidence as a dancer?
Okay. Is the one, how can one get to confidence? Is that to do with getting back, or this is a new thing?
A new question, yeah.
Okay,
So
all right, let's do the previous one first, which is how do you come back? So what you need to do, again, is visualizations, is remember what it was like to perform in those large venues. And when you're performing back then in the large venues, how did it feel? So you go through that process of remembering what it was like and generating that energy again within you, knowing that you can do it again. Yes, you've got to get up to the standard that you were, and there's no fear with that. It's just like riding a bicycle, takes a bit of time to build up again. But once you've done that, you then start working on your confidence and the visualizations of what it felt like. And you need to feel it in your body. You don't just think about it, you feel that excitement in your body in the same way as I was saying earlier about feeling excited rather than anxious, having the same physical feelings, but you say, I'm excited. And you generate it like that by using these positive thoughts. Now, there may be other things going on in your lives which then create issues that would need to be dealt with. Other people having depression or anxiety, other things happening within your family or friends around you. Those need to be dealt with as well. So you can't just single out one aspect of that. How do you build confidence? I think if I just say, how do you build confidence? Rather than that, I would want to say to every one of you out there, and look straight in your eyes now, every one of you is unique. Every one of you has your own attributes. Everyone has your own individual ability. There's no point in comparing yourself with anyone else. Comparing in the studio, comparing on social media. You are perfect for who you are, that unique individual. And I think if you can concentrate on that, that confidence will build up. Okay. Kavita, I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you. And I know we've already gotten some people saying that it was very helpful already. So, I mean, I think there's so much to talk about with the topics that you're covering and the knowledge you have. I would just put it out there to all of our attendees. Please feel free, like Terry said, to reach out to him. If you want to repeat your email one more time for everyone, that would be wonderful.
Counseling for dancers, all one word, at gmail.com, and counseling has 2 L's.
Yes.
Okay, and for studios and dance schools out there, I have this recorded talk that includes a meditation at the end, should you wish to, and it covers more subjects as well, because we only had 20 minutes to try and fit this in.
No, but that was wonderful. I think we get a little bit of a taste of how deep you can dive into this topic and all the ways we can prepare ourselves mentally to be prepared as a dancer and as a performer, because sometimes we're just told to push through things and don't worry about it, get on stage, you'll be fine, versus actually understanding how our mental physiology affects everything else. So I think it's so important as educators, I will speak for myself, it's so important to remind us that that is something that we need to be aware of when we're teaching our children. So thank you so much,
Right.
Terry. Really appreciate it. I don't know, what time is it for you over there?
It's 7:05 in the evening, and it's dinner time.
Okay. So your stomach is grumbling. We will let you go.
Yes, I can smell it.
Amazing. We will not keep you any longer, but thank you again from all of us at Heat, and we look forward to having you back soon.
Okay, thank you very much for having me. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye. Big waves, big waves.
I just realized we have people from all over the world attending this panel, from Spain, from Israel. So just so we get to know a little bit of our attendees, feel free to throw in the chat where you're coming in from, what your background is. I think it's so important as a community, we also engage with each other. So I invite you now to take a second to say hello to one another, say who you are and where you're tuning in from, just so we can keep this community building and growing. And it's also so wonderful to see you guys coming from so many places. So we are about to round the corner to the last part of our forum today, and I'm so excited about our next speaker. I have had the wonderful opportunity to get to know this amazing individual through teaching with her and traveling, and not only is she an incredible incredible dancer and performer, but a wealth of knowledge on the specific subject that she's going to be speaking about, which is the why, and finding our whys and how do we connect that with our dance and our dance history. I mean, I cannot go on and on about how much I enjoy my conversations with her and digging deep about certain subjects. And her resume is just off the wall. I could spend another 45 minutes telling you about all the wonderful things. But Comfort Fidoki, who is a native Texan, yay, go Texans. I'm also from Houston, also half Nigerian. She is a multi-talented Emmy award-winning dancer, y'all. Emmys, woo, yes. Choreographer, director, actress, and singer, which I didn't know, Comfort, that you sang. So I'm going to ask you about that next time. She's definitely known for competing on So You Think You Could Dance season 4 and has been coming back regularly to the show as an all-star and a choreographer and continues to mentor new competitors each season. So, I mean, there's so much to talk about in terms of the artists she's worked with: Kanye West, LL Cool J, Taylor Swift. I mean, like literally anyone you can think of. It's on her list. So I know she's moved a lot into acting and choreography and directing. So please do look up her resume as well. But I'm just so interested to chat with you, Comfort, and have her hear what you have to say. So hi, welcome.
Hello.
Yeah,
Hi. It's been such a informative day. I've loved listening to everyone and hearing how like engaged everyone is too with the questions and all that good stuff. I'm thankful to be here. Thanks for having me, Kavita, in the heat.
yes.
Always a pleasure.
I'm gonna pass the mic over to you. I'll be back.
Okay. What up, y'all? Okay, so the topic of discussion today would be understanding your whys. Like, why? Like, why in any subject, when you say who, what, when, where, and why. And so within that, alarm set, I was ready. So with that being said, I can only base all of my information off of my who, my whys, my when, my wheres. And so that's how you create intention behind your dance movement. And that's how I created intention behind my dance movement, my identity and who I am and how I blend myself within anyone else's choreography or voice or whatever the case may be. So let's start with that. So my who, I would say, who did I learn my understanding of dance from, or music? Where did I hear it? When did I hear it? And being that I am half Nigerian, my mother is Black American. She was born more so and raised in the South, and my father is Nigerian. And so with music, I heard music first, right? And I heard Fela Kuti. Now, Fela Kuti, he's one of the pioneers for Afrobeat. The reason why Afrobeat's now super popular right now, and it's because of this man, Fela Kuti. He had a voice of reason. His music made people mad. It made his government mad because he spoke politics. He understood what the people mean. It was like social injustice, you know what I mean? It was like social protest with his music. But the rhythms and the beats is what created all of this, the gathering, the understanding of each other and being able to march with one another, right? And so that music and that beat is what my dad would listen to all the time, along with like jazz and all that stuff. So those were the things I naturally would hear. And because of Yoruba is the culture that I am raised in to understand, Yoruba and Yoruba, but Yoruba culture itself is pretty much within the dance. It's pretty much the passage they celebrate the passage from childhood to adulthood, right? And it's through spiritual worship and rituals, whatever the case may be, but how they spoke to each other in circles and ciphers, and how they gathered, how they spoke to one another. If one another didn't speak the same language, they all used their movement and rhythm. And if everyone had different rhythms, then you knew what region you were from. And that brings me back to understanding your intention behind your movement, because movement changes depending on your region. Right. And so I started to try to understand more of that. But because I was raised still in more of American culture, then pop culture and hip hop was what I was introduced to in Dallas, Texas, being from my mom's side. And so I had to learn later on where hip hop and dance and movement came from within my culture with growing up in the States. And everything's pretty much the same. It's social gathering, it's social dancing. So if let's say you're at a party, and the one thing that brings everyone together in Texas is line dancing, right? So everyone doesn't have to like dance with a partner, and it's not like this solo thing by yourself. But how you are able to meet the community is y'all all have a like-minded dance that everyone, it's simple and it's generated throughout the history. And for me, that was the electric slide. An electric slide was created like what, in the 70s. I'm trying to remember 1976. Yes, 1976. And the artist who made the song is from Jamaica. So he's from Jamaica, and his name was Bunny Wyler. And so that song, it was sung by Marcia Griffith, with the do the electric slide. So, I mean, everybody should know that dance. I mean, honestly, that was my first dance. If there was anything I knew as a sequence, it was that dance. And how you communicated with that dance moved differently in different areas, especially in the South. It just moved, it started to create a life of its own. The sequence started to change, right? But it was a social dance, it was social gathering. It's how you spoke to one another. It's how you felt connected. If you were like a little bit of a lone wolf and you didn't want to dance and you didn't want to be, singled out, you joined these social dances and these social movements, and that's how you spoke. And so, like, I can only speak from where I'm from. And it goes back to where, when, why, all those asking yourself those whys, and how you generate who you are. And so when I started understanding like these social gatherings, social movement, and in Dallas, in the South period, it was based upon like festivals, competition, sports, any of that is where I was built off of and where I understood. And so when I started to be able to understand more about, I guess I would say hip hop, when I started to understand more about pop culture, I started to want to dive into what that meant, and I'm still young. I wasn't born during this time. I was raised during the era, and the era influenced me and it influenced my movement. And when I understood when hip hop was born, a lot of people don't know when hip hop was born, but hip hop was born in 1973, August 11th. It's its birthday. DJ Kool Herc, he was, again, social party. It was called the Back to School Jam. And that's when the scratching and the breaking and all of that, it came from the disco era. So it was still that dance era. And then all of a sudden it changed because everyone wanted to speak more so about social issues like police brutality, oppression. So all of these, and so through dance history, it always comes out of social protest, I don't care where it is. I don't care where you're from. You don't have to be from Africa, Europe. If you kind of dive into your heritage, your ancestry, like you'll start to realize with movement, it always came as a cultural expression, right? And so with me, I started to understand it was a little different from understanding my African heritage, but then the Black American understanding that, it was like, okay, it's still dived into the same thing. They still spoke like conscious rap. First conscious rapper was Grandmaster Flash. And so you started to understand like, oh, wow, like everyone was being up, like, oh, what's this music? Everyone's, rapping and saying all these different things. But then once you dived into understanding what their lyrical content was, they were speaking about social injustice and oppression and police brutality. And then all of a sudden, sometimes they'll speak about it. And then sometimes it was just about vibing with each other, understanding that we all come from the same thing. Now let's celebrate each other. And so that movement and that energy brings in that understanding of how you move and how you speak. So my hand gestures weren't just be about pointing. Why are you pointing? Who are you pointing at? When did you feel like you needed to point, and where? And that intention behind your movement starts to create a true it in you. You know how when people are like, how do you know, like all dancers, you're like, oh, how do I, you know, be the one to get picked out of 500 people? Do you have that it? Did you discover your whys? Did you understand why I like this movement and where did it come from? Can I kind of backtrack the understanding of this movement so I can see how it registers and how it connects with me as I move forward with my language and my understanding or my path, right? We don't all have to come from the same path and same understanding, but if you connect with a particular style, know that that style has been moved through generations and time. So it's really about really backtracking and knowing where it was to know how you can bring it to where it's going to go. And that's why it's so important to me when I see any dancers dive into stuff right now, right? So everything is like a trend. Everything is fast, like a microwave. Everyone's like hot pocket, pow, and it's in there and you're out of there, right? But nothing comes with substance, you know, nothing comes with that seasoning. Like it didn't take time to marinate. So then it has longevity, you know what I mean? Not that it's just easy and you can pop it in and pop it out. So that's how I can tell the difference between someone who knows their movement and who is just mimicking. And mimicking doesn't last very long when you don't understand where it really dives in from. And and so that's why it's important to understand the regions of music and where it comes from. So in the South, we all think there's trap music, right? And it's all this different stuff. But to be quite honest, a lot of people think hip hop only comes from the West Coast and the East Coast, but I'm from the South. And so Dallas has their own understanding of music, how they took from the disco era and they slowed their music down and they chopped and screwed their music. So they had a different intonation of how they spoke in their music. And then of course, country music and line dancing and being in the South, in the country, wide open spaces, that their energy was completely different. In Atlanta, you have different dances, which is still kind of about the line dances, it's still underneath that, but there was more about cranking and this dance called yeeking and they had stepping as well. And so in the South, in Dallas, we have stepping as well too. And for those who don't know much of stepping, stepping is, oh man, okay, so we have in universities, if you ever went to, I don't know, I don't care if you weren't in the South, but if you went to any university, you know there's fraternities and sororities, right? And those are social societies, right? They will call themselves Divine Nine. And it was all about love and pride of an organization, right? Whatever that organization is. And some of those organizations had dance troupes, had movement within their culture, in their organization, how they spoke to each other, how they competed against each other, how they showed pride for their team. And how they would do that is by stepping. They would make these noises and claps and the rhythms with stepping, hitting their knees. If you ever seen the one movie I feel like maybe people can connect to and understand it is Stomp the Yard. And Stomp the Yard is one of the movies I feel like in our time that really showcased that culture. And then I dived a little bit more like, oh my God, like this stepping, like all this clapping, creating beats with your body and your feet. And then I dived in to see like, where is that? Is that just is that a Black American culture? Is that African American? It's like, you know, is that our culture in the States? And then I ended up tracing it back that it was actually in South Africa. In South Africa, back, I won't even say how far back it goes, but time goes by really far when it they would call it gumboot, and it was pretty much like people who worked in gold mines. And so they had to protect themselves because they were forced to work in really harsh conditions. Okay. And again, this is back in the day, but this is the reason why dance is what it is right now, because it comes from somewhere and it becomes from hardships, you know? And they would put their boots on, their rubber boots on, to keep their skin from getting rashes or any type of bad conditions from the water, right? And if I'm understanding that correctly too. And so they had these rubber boots on. And so how they would communicate with each other, and they expressed with each other, because it would be so dark in the mines or whatever the case may be, if they couldn't see each other, is by rhythm. Syncopation. I'm on the left. I'm on the right. Like creating those sounds is how they were able to maneuver through the minds, and how they were able to even just get through the day, and celebrating each other through the life of music and dance, because they would go through so much. And through that dark times, they the employers or the people who employed them started seeing how they would communicate and how they would actually showcase to other people, like other people who came across the world, right? And they wanted to share to the other military, like what they're doing. They would put together these troops of people, gumboots. They put together these troops and have them perform for all of these different visitors that would come through, not knowing that these dancers, these workers were kind of making fun of them, with their stepping, with their music, with their voice, not knowing that, because that was the way they expressed themselves. And they all thought it was entertainment, but everyone who knew the language, everyone who knew the dance would know that they were expressing themselves in their hardship, and they found a way to say it through movement. And that got really popular, and it became outside the workplace and went into the communities, and it became this thing. And then it started shifting into this American culture, until what we have today is stepping and the fraternities and it's moved on. So again, it's the region, it's understanding where something came from, so you can understand how you can bring it to yourself and let it move forward. And again, it's still diving into those whys and whens and wheres, and whatever the case may be. And honestly, it might not be for you, you know what I mean? Like to try to dive so far into your history, whatever that history is. Again, everyone has an history, everyone has an ancestry line of where something came from. And if you kind of really understand that dance is a cultural expression, expressed differently worldwide, from rituals to social protests to gatherings, whatever it is, it raises social consciousness. And so with that being said, you must know what that voice in yourself is, so that one can really be able to depict you from another. And how can you do that if we're all trying to sing the same song, but yet we're not from the same place? So that's I want to stop for a moment, and if anyone has any questions or anything like that before I ramble, because I'll ramble.
No, you just really hit the nail on the head on so many points that I felt like resonated so well with me, because I feel like my why comes from my generational past and understanding that. And until I did that, I didn't find my voice as a dancer. So
Right.
I truly with that statement and understanding that journey that it takes sometimes. So we do have a lot of questions already for you. So I'm just going
Great.
to start one by one. What is the difference between hip hop and commercial hip hop?
Great question. So, okay.
Whoever said it, question to them.
Okay, so hip hop, right? Hip hop's foundation, or the hip hop's elements, are emceeing, DJing, breaking, graffiti, and beatboxing. That's the beginning, right? That's when it all started. Again, it was that understanding, breaking the beats. Okay, and if we understand what hip hop means, back in the day in the 70s, what they used to say, they used to be like, again, I wasn't there, but my mama would say, oh, that was hip. Oh, your outfit is so hip. Oh, you're hip. And then the next word is hop, is that bounce, is that understanding that bounce. And so then you put together and you get this popular multi-trillion-dollar word, hip hop. And so what's recognizable about hip hop is when you see those elements, and or when you see the foundation of the rock, the top rocking, the bounce, and the groove. Those are all the languages of hip hop. If one doesn't see any of at least the elements or the language or that foundation in hip hop, then you're unrecognizable. And then we dive into commercial. Commercial dance and hip hop are series of the sequence of steps to hip hop music. So there it's almost like, and I hate to say this and use this because it's not me being upset with any other style of dance, but it's like seeing cheerleading to hip hop music, that straight line and understanding of sharp, and all of these things that are are unlike the bounce and the groove that needs to be recognized in it. So when you see commercial hip hop, you see the watered down version of something that may take longer than just a day to truly be able to resonate into your body. So commercial hip hop is like the popcorn, is like the hot pocket, the microwave food of hip hop, actual dance and understanding in depth.
That's a great way to resonate it. It's like the microwave food. Totally.
Yeah, and there's
That's how
nothing
I
wrong with microwave food. I mean, when you gotta get it, you're hungry. I get it, but not all the time.
Right.
You're gonna have to put some new substance and nutritions into your body.
Okay, so then that kind of leads me to the next question. How did the name hip hop come about? I know you talked a little bit about the history of hip hop and its birthday and when it started, but how did the name come about?
So that's what I was saying. So when you break down the word hip hop, because again the culture again was based upon being cool, that disco era, that time. So hip hop is based about how you dressed, how you look, your swag, your vibe, that energy. So people would be like, yo, I'm hip. Everything that I'm wearing is super hip. It's super, it's in fashion, whatever. And so when certain regions of people within the area would dance, when they would move or coming out of that disco era, and the way DJ Kool Herc would change his music and breaks and the beats, everyone would have this different type of bounce and hop that moved up and down that was different than anything within the disco era. So I believe during that time, that's when they put those two words together and created hip hop, where then you understood that it was about being hip, it was about being like in fashion, and it was about that bounce and that groove that people were recognizing in MCing.
Okay, and then this I think is a very pertinent question that, probably a lot of people on here would want to know is what's good advice for a young up and coming hip hop / commercial hip hop choreographers and teachers? And how do you educate and choreograph in this style?
I would say for anyone who, especially if you can't get around the culture, because to be quite honest, social gatherings, social dancing, everything is about being around it socially. You can't learn anything without truly being engulfed in it all. And I know during this time, it's hard to be engulfed with it, but engulf into it because of, our current state right now. But I think it's about really diving into certain regions, certain places where you can get some of your information from. A lot of information is from, the thing is, if you're consider yourself a hip hop dancer, you have to know how to freestyle. If you don't know how to freestyle, then you're just doing a sequence of steps to hip hop music. And so therefore, again, like I said, it's unrecognizable. So really understanding that element and those voices by looking up, let's say, watching shows. I know there's a show that's out called Hip Hop Evolution. That is a really great show to really understand hip hop history and understanding that, and see how it's the difference between that and commercial. And you'll understand that. I would say watch documentary shows that are kind of like that and let that kind of resonate into you. Look up people like you look up people who like the Electric Boogaloos. You understand if you like the difference between popping or locking or whacking. Look up Tony Basil for the lockers. Look up Elite Force for New York hip hop. You know what I mean? And just kind of start looking up these dance styles. And if you have questions about certain dance styles and trendy style names, and you understand that you can kind of find out where these origins began, and then how that rhythm is in your body, and really try to freestyle it within yourself and get like-minded individuals to dance along with you and have that conversation together. So don't let it always be about choreography. Let it be about the communication within the style, and that's how you let it move. If it's only dived into just sequence of steps and choreography, then you'll never see why it evolutionizes and how it blossoms from its form. It's about really understanding the foundation and letting it move from there.
Okay, and then this is going to be a little bit difficult because I think so much of what you talk about is that things have a complexity. But if there is one thing you want young dancers or teachers to know about hip hop, what would that one thing be?
Wait, say it again. Sorry, you kind of broke up.
If there is one thing you want young teachers or hip hop dancers to know, what would that one thing be
The one thing be about the dancers to know
about hip hop? Yeah.
about hip hop.
I know that goes against everything you just said about all of the things that you need to do and learn. But
If there's one thing about hip hop is that it's a social protest. It's a social gathering. Is raised on social consciousness. It's a it's an understanding from here. It's an expression. It's a lifestyle. I mean, I wish I could say one thing, but if I was to say one thing, it's a lifestyle. It's, it's an expression. It's understanding here. And so until you understand, that's why this whole thing is about understanding your whys, because you don't have to be from the hood to be like, I'm a hip hop dancer. You don't have to do that. But if you understand all the elements that comes from hip hop and why it is, where it was, when it happened, who, understanding all of those, you can start letting that digest to you and how that connects with you in your path in your life. And that's what makes it hip hop. It's the expression, it's the movement.
no, that's a great way of kind of connecting the dots because I truly think that's with any dance style. It's like there's a
Yeah.
way to mimic and copy things, and then there's a way to truly understand things. And it's really about just whether it's doing the research and living and breathing, and how does that style come to be, and how does it feel in your body, and how do you then connect with that authentically. So yeah, it's not one thing, but the one thing is doing all the work.
One thing is doing all the work for sure.
Yeah. And then how can, I'm guessing this comes from a teacher, how can myself, a teacher without a connection to hip hop, teach hip hop?
I would see, and this my OGs would always tell me or tell anyone, don't teach it. Unless you can really, I'm talking about really dive into understanding that foundation of it. You have to feel it in yourself. You know what I mean? It has that bounce, that rock, that groove. Like I would say, before you teach anything, it's really about looking, like, the information is out there. You can, Mr. Wiggles, alive and well. He's one of the founders of Rocksteady and one of the understandings of hip hop. Poppin' Pete, alive and well. They have workshops. Ladies of Hip Hop in New York, they have workshops and seminars. Elite Force, they have workshops and seminars. It's just about knowing where to go so that you can train yourself, so that then you can give them the correct information. I would never advise anyone to not train themselves first before teaching hip hop, because what happens is you'll teach them the wrong rhythms or not understanding that snare and that bass. You got to understand hip hop music to understand hip hop movement. So all of it starts with that training within yourself and really finding those particular teachers who are alive and well and teaching at this moment. If you ever need help to get to those people, I will give those to you, because they're all there. And then being able to train all the time in yourself with freestyle in that movement, so that it keeps continuing to change, or all your movement's going to look like everyone else's choreography. And then it's just never going to sit well, like your own expression, like hip hop is supposed to be. It's supposed to be your own voice.
And then you're not teaching your students either the understanding of it.
No, you're not. Yeah. So, and you're just teaching because it's popular. And if that's the case, then, that's what's happening anyways. But if you want to be different, then be a student again in the style. Go learn from certain people. Like I said, like the Elite Force, Mr. Wiggles, Ladies of Hip Hop, VersaStyle. There's all these different corporations and companies that have, great organizations that they still teach, they teach webinars, they have these free classes and all this other stuff. So you can kind of get into the groove of things and understanding your body, and the training of it. So then you'd be able to teach it properly, especially names. There are actual foundational names to hip hop movement. I can walk into my classes after my class and be like, I want you to do the BK bounce into the prep, into the Steve Martin, and give me 2 Steve Martins on the side with 2 rocks back and 2 rocks forward. And I would expect someone to understand that, because I understand it. I'm still young. I understand it. So if you don't understand that, what I just said, then that means those are the things you need to dive into and understand what those movements are, so you can teach them just like a ballet class. I can just sit there and just say words and they would know exactly what I'm talking about.
100%. 100%. Yeah. See, I'm a student of hip hop still because I didn't know all those things. So I am definitely, I would never teach it. So, but yeah, I think that's something so important to recognize within ourselves as teachers when we need to be students, because,
Yeah.
we rhythms of teaching and having to fill classes and having to, commitments to our studio owners, or if we are the studio owner, filling those spots because the style is popular, but then, the teacher still has to be a student until they're fully ready. And I don't think we're
Agreed.
ever fully ready. I'm still learning all the time.
Oh God, I think we're constantly still learning, especially now. Like that's why I say if you want to understand what hip hop and trendy and pop dances are, because they all keep changing, it all keeps evolutionizing. But you have to realize they come from these different regions. So I love that. I love that earlier she was talking about like the TikToks and all this other stuff. But then I would love for them to understand that some of those dances are all from the South, and they all come from particular areas, and there are reasons why these kids do these certain dances, and they all come from these. If you went there, they'll have battles of the actual name. There's like cranking, understanding battles of the actual name, and understanding the whoa, which came from Houston, Texas, from Young Deji. So all these certain like popular dances all come from this, a social society.
Yeah. Do you find that social media has kind of impacted hip hop in a negative or positive way in terms of dance like that?
I think social media does that to anything. You know what I mean? It finds a way to, water it down and get it out to the masses quickly. So we skip a couple of steps, and I think that's in anything. I think anyone can sit here and get mad at social media of how it can kind of water things down. But at the same time, it is getting it out there, and it is putting it in faces and people's, and it's giving appreciation to dance that dance wasn't at a level before. But at the same time, it doesn't shine enough light on where it actually comes from, so therefore it gets kind of watered down, and then it'll never get evolutionized because they're not the ones making up the movement. You know what I mean? They're just taking it and capitalizing off of it. Nothing wrong with it. It's all good, it's all fun, it's all love. But we want it to continue to I guess, keep evolutionizing. We want to remember where it actually comes from, and want to see where it's evolutionizing from, so you can actually be able to be a part of the trend rather than be only the trend.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. Well, Comfort, thank you so much for taking your Saturday morning and talking with all of us at Heat. And I can't wait to see you on our next Heat weekend, whenever that is.
Yeah, I know, right?
But yeah, we'll continue all these conversations. And for all of you teachers out there, studio owners, when you attend a Heat convention, we we offer these classes and classes like these, and we just highly encourage you to attend them, because these classes are designed to provide information for further education, training, give you the answers to questions that you may not even know you have. So sorry, got a frog caught in my throat too. But really want to make sure that I know, right? Really want to make sure that we are catering these classes to things that you guys want and need. So please do, send in questions at any time. I know the Heat staff behind the scenes is always working. Matt, Kobe, Johnny, Leah, everybody working to grow and expand and listen. This is why this is all a part of our mission statement. So again, please don't feel like just because, I know some people may be watching this form at a later date because we do put these up online. So if you are watching this on YouTube or whatever, it's never too late to reach out, and especially Comfort, Ariane, and Terry, they all, have given information that there's more to learn and more that I know that they're willing to share. So I know Comfort, you're still on here. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off so soon, but what is the best way for people to get a hold of you if you are there, if they have questions or anything like that? And you can always, if you're not on here, that's okay. We will also.
No,
share that
I'm
information.
here. I think I just got disabled. They cut me out. But
Okay.
if you want to, you can find me on social media, Comfort Fidoki. Everywhere it'll be considered Comfort Fidoki, just my first and last name.
Okay, thank you so much, Comfort. Thank
Thank
you again for
you.
joining. Really appreciate it. So until next time, please keep a lookout for more of these. This is our third one, and we hope to continue doing these and continue finding subject matter and topics that you're invested in, that you want to continue learning about, because a huge part of our HEAP mission statement is about our educators and that we continue the education. So just as Comfort I was talking about, as teachers, we're never done learning. We're never done being students. We're, as studio owners, as parents, as Ariane talked about so much, as all the different aspects that we're involved in a dancer's life or a dancer's work, or ourselves as a dancer or a choreographer or a teacher, it's never ending. So I hope you all enjoy the rest of your Saturday or whatever day and time you are, because I know we're coming from all different places. I bid you farewell, and until next time, have a great one.